Welcome back to the NSE. Welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 668th New Social Environment. I'm Eleanor, a Programs Associate here at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a conversation featuring Jade Manns, Owen Prum, Sharleen Chidiac, Alexa West, and Gillian Jakab. We're also thrilled to welcome poet Kyle Carrero Lopez here to close today's program. And before we get started, the Brooklyn Rail acknowledges that Black Lives Matter, and here in New York, we are on Lenape-Hoking, the unceded land and waters of the Wappinger, Canarsie, Munsee, and Lenni Lenape people of the Delaware Nation and Shinnecock Indian Nation. And we acknowledge and recognize that while the land acknowledgements are not a replacement for the necessary decolonial work, but they are a reminder of place, of the legacies of dispossession and enslavement that sustain and enrich the stolen land we are speaking from. And now to introduce today's guests and host, we are joined by the co-founders of PAGEANT. Canadian dance artist Jade Manns is based in New York. Her work has been shown at Abrons Art Center, Truro Center for the Arts at Castle Hill, and many other venues. Jade has been a two-time recipient of the individual project grant from the Alberta Foundation for the Arts. Dancer and choreographer Owen Prum has danced for Neil Greenberg, Burr Johnson, and Jordan Lloyd, among others, and has shown his work at Triskelion Arts and Eden's Expressway. Choreographer Sharleen Chidiac is based in New York City. Her work has been shown at Bam Fisher and Judson Church, amongst other venues. Sharleen has also worked as a movement director for countless music videos and fashion shows. New York City-based dance artist Alexa West has presented work in spaces around New York and Houston, and she has been in residence with Ches Bushwick and New Dance Alliance. West is currently an MFA candidate at Bard College, Milton Avery School of the Arts. And our host today, the dance editor of the Brooklyn Rail, Gillian Jakab, is also associate editor of Gagosian Quarterly. Her writing on dance and other topics has appeared in many publications, and she holds a BA from the University of Michigan and an MA from Columbia University. She was raised and lives in Brooklyn, and we are so happy to have these amazing people here with us today. I'm so excited to turn it over to you, Gillian, to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. I'm so happy to be here. I know you and I were talking about Dance on NSE soon, and it happened, sooner than we could have hoped. And it, works really well with the feature we have in this issue of the Rail and the Dance section on PAGEANT's recent performance. Welcome, everyone. I remember long time Rail friend Richard McDonough, who I'm not sure if he's chimed in today, but told me about performances happening in a shared living apartment space. And since then, PAGEANT has moved this past spring to the place it is now. And I'm very curious about the origins and the kind of evolution of this performance community space and the history of it.
I guess I'll start. In I think February 2020, is that right, Alexa? Alexa found a listing online for this large old factory space that was an apartment, but had a very spacious front area, as you can see here. Alexa had sent it to me and a friend of ours, Susanna Ugler, and suggested maybe we see if we could rent it for rehearsal spaces. And Susanna and I decided to try to live there instead. And so Susanna, myself, Richard McDonough, and our friend also Lon Mall decided to move into this apartment and turn it into what became a performance space and a rehearsal space for us. Susanna then got into grad school and moved, and Jade moved in August last year?
Yeah, I think so. August.
And And we kept having shows and rehearsing and whatnot. You can see this is our back area. There's Owen, Richard, Amelia, who's
Julie,
also, yeah. So we had about, I think, four shows while we were there, and plenty of rehearsals, but it became really hard to sustain like living and working in the same place that you live. Also, it was residential or zoned as such, and our landlords didn't like that we would have shows and rehearsals and just a lot of people coming in and out. So that was sort of our impetus to find a space that would be, that's Richard's disco ball. We decided to start looking for a space that could be separate from where we all lived. That could be a commercial lease, so we could actually have shows and make money, and or at least have money coming through that could support ourselves and other artists. That place was really special, and it taught us a lot. And when we were looking for a new space, we found what we have as our space today, that it was really expensive and outside of our reach. And we kind of put it away for a few months, and kept searching. We all looked at so many places, and a few months later we came back to the space that we are now, and we decided we would just fundraise and figure it out and do it and like take the risk and leap. That was from a work in progress showing we had. That's Isa.
Sharleen, do you mind if I cut in really quick?
Please, yeah.
It's something I think really important too is before this space that we refer to as 464 existed, we had all these dancers living in Ridgewood who were kind of like acquaintances or friends, or we were all working on projects together, but there wasn't a real place for us all to like go all the time. Mm-hmm. And so like people would be going to Cunningham together, there'd be different sites where we would all run into each other, but there was no central location in our own neighborhood. And so this kind of developed as a place where like everyone who actually lived locally had a dance space to circulate around and go to. And it became this kind of hub for our community. And once we realized that space was somewhat unsustainable, we wanted to continue to have a place. It almost felt like our community had nowhere to go for a split second. And that was really important why we like chose to kind of upgrade and go to 70 gram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this place was kind of like meant to be in a way, because I think like me and Sharleen decided like it's time to move out and maybe we can like get something bigger. And the next day I found this place on Craigslist and we went and saw it like immediately, and we were like, fell in love.
And in the current issue of The Rail, as I mentioned, there's a review of Jade and Owen's recent performance. And if our audience members haven't read it yet, I think it's in the chat. I think Angelina's with us today, so in the Q&A later, she can offer her critical perspective. We have the it was co-written by Anya Bernstein as well, which is an interesting practice and engagement in itself with, bringing two perspectives and critical voices together. But now I'm curious, since we have all of you here, to have the behind the scenes, the dancer, the creator perspective on it. And I know you have a video that shows some of that and maybe some stories to share about this recent split bill program.
Yeah, I think one of the best parts about our community right now and just pageant as it exists at this moment is that a lot of us dance in each other's work and kind of take turns choreographing and then dancing for each other. So that's been like a real privilege to have this kind of community that kind of sustains itself or like holds itself up with so many different members. And that's been happening since the pandemic, really, which has been really, really a blessing.
I would also like to note what's going on in the slideshow right now. For those, it is not our space. This was a fundraiser we had when we realized we had to, because our current 70 grand for pageant is a commercial lease, and we had to raise a ton of money, and we had this whole dance community come out. Now we're looking at 70 grand on this slide. But I think an important thing about the shows that have been happening too, it's like further than what Owen said, not only are we like people in our community making the work, performing in the work, and then we're also, the people in the community are working the shows, doing all the lights, doing all the scheduling. It really is like a whole artist community doing work for each other and like sharing responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to continue with the slideshow for a little bit, narrating that, or do we want to share the wonderful behind the scenes video at this stage?
Yeah, it might be nice to see the video.
Let's do it.
Show the energy.
That's a gorgeous picture.
Yeah.
The light.
Yeah, the light's really nice.
Can I just quickly describe what this video is?
Yes, please, please.
So this video was made by Kyle Cooper, who has been an amazing, amazing blessing for us as a dance community. He's come in and has been documenting all of our shows. And now this is footage from his behind the scenes documentation that we came together and decided to start making as memorabilia and as documentation, but also as something, as material to offer on our Patreon, which is a fundraising effort that we're taking to help sustain what we're doing. Because everything we do, the money we make to support the space is all coming directly out of our own labor. So this is just another example of what we do to make everything happen. And you'll see here all of the community that comes together to help put on a show. And that's what this is.
And also maybe just for context, like it's a really beautiful video. And it starts with, he is kind of documenting our rehearsal processes, me and Owen's separate rehearsal processes for this show. And then he's documenting our tech. The day of the show, Richard was building us risers in the morning. And then you see us all kind of like setting up and getting ready for the show. And this is what you're about to see, is the doors are opening for the show on the first night.
Welcome back to Pageant. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the night so you get the gist. We're showing 2 works tonight. It's a split bill. The first work is by choreographer Jade Manns. It's titled The Open. Then we're going to have a really tiny pause. It's not long enough for a cigarette or anything, so do with that what you will. And then the second work we'll see tonight is choreographed by Owen Prum. It's titled Weekend. So please enjoy the show.
On 3 hometown. Orco Battalion 1, Orco Lincoln 65, Huntington Truck 22, Valley Truck 31, Huntington 1822, Structure Fire 16,692, Wanderer Lane, District 3207, X-Ray, Cross Street, Carousel Lane. Orco Battalion 1, Orco Lincoln 65, Huntington Truck 22, Valley Truck 31, Huntington 1822, on 3 November. Engine 1, or the Rescue 1, evacuate at Chapman University 1, East University Drive, District 2232 Whiskey, Cross Street, North Orange Street. Or Engine 1, or the Rescue 1, Bravo response, on 2 Antioch.
We're going to upgrade this to an SCI. We're going to run it with the units that we do have attached to the pole right now. You can notify the BC his discretion if he wants to respond, and we're going to run it on 3 Bravo.
This is now working fire. Battalion 8.
Well, we just had the show and it went really well, and we were nervous about having so many people.
That's nice.
But it was very comfortable because we have our risers.
There's no reason I should hold it.
It was great. I don't know. It was good. It was fun.
And tomorrow?
Tomorrow's gonna be great. It's gonna be easy.
Jade fucking killed it. She's the best dancer. She's my favorite dancer in the world.
Sharleen, what do you think?
I can't handle it. Jade and Owen are so amazing. And it's so important that we have this space like this, because otherwise, I don't know that they would be making this work.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing.
Thank you, Kale. It was a beautiful night. Very grateful for everyone involved. My heart is full. That's great. That's all I have to say.
The moment after the show in that video, you really see an illustration of what Anya and Angelina wrote in the first paragraph of their article. As soon as the lights come up after the show, this stage becomes a house for the audience and the green room a bar. It is impossible not to linger and bask in the afterglow. And you can really feel that excitement, and you can see the audience and the community feeling like part of the space, part of the performance. And I know when you were speaking a bit about the history, you were saying there was this dancer community in Ridgewood and you were seeing each other, but, you know, wanted to create your own place to come together. And I'm curious, over the, you know, short time you've been working as pageant, if the audience and community has kind of stuck to feeling like a lot of dancers for dancers, or if it has expanded, or anything has surprised you about your reception and your audience. How would you begin to describe the community?
Yeah, I think, I mean, usually with the type of work that we make or the community that we're in, it does always kind of feel like showing dance for dancers, and it's very insular. And I think that that's something that's kind of unique or cool that's been happening, is there's a lot of people who are coming who don't really know anything about dance, but are like interested in it, and they show up and they like keep coming back. I mean, honestly, even just to have like somebody be making a like little documentary film about experimental dance, this is so crazy. Like no one does that. No one cares about what we do. So, but I don't know what about it is so, people feel really drawn to it. There's something about the spirit in it that goes beyond just dance or performance, I think, like that people feel drawn to and people come back to. So it's special.
I also think within like the larger schema of dance, it for non-dancers, it can be quite intimidating to figure out what to go see, what to do. And I think there's something quite accessible, like conceptually, about pageant, where people feel like they can come and they don't have to like feel intimidated by the space. And so we get a lot of like people from different communities coming and feeling excited about learning about like what they're seeing, you know.
Mm-hmm. And just to bounce off of that, I think a really important point to make about why we started pageant, and even why 464, the previous iteration, began, was because we, as dance makers and dancers, have experienced a lot of challenges in finding opportunities to just make work and show it. And the process that should, in a way, be pretty simple, but is actually really daunting in the dance world, or is just very difficult to find opportunities. I think what is so special about pageant is there's so much opportunity there. And I think that's the response we feel, is that people really are supportive and coming out and involved because they sense or can tell that there's an opportunity for them to be either involved or have a show or come to a class they've never come to before, whatever it might be. I think it just really feels like a home for opportunity and accessibility in terms of making and creating and experiencing performance.
The video showed some clips of both of the works. I don't know if either of the choreographers want to speak a little bit about the works that we saw, or let the clips speak for themselves. Up to you.
Yeah, the piece that I made it originally for the Performance Mix Festival that New Dance Alliance does, and that happened in June. And the dancers are Ileana Penache Ramirez, Kayleen Del Rosario, Owen Prum, Issa Spector, and Lila Van Rens. And yeah, it's hard to speak about the work, but I think the thing that I'm really interested in my work is incoherence and images, and taking these sort of like images that if you put them together in like a certain sequence, they would have like a coherence, but taking them out of that linear relationship with each other and scrambling it and kind of, I don't know, I might fumble this, but regardless of what I was trying to do with the work, I wanted to show it again because I got this opportunity with the Performance Mix Festival, which was awesome. But I really got to show it one time, and it was like a matinee in the middle of the day. So I was like, well, now we have pageant, I'll show it at pageant. And it was only 15 minutes. So I needed somebody to split the bill with me. So I asked Owen to do it. And I don't know, Owen, if you want to say anything about your piece.
Totally. I guess I'd like the piece to speak for itself, but that being said, I think Angelina and Anya's article written for the Rail is actually really great description and analysis of I think both Jade and I's work, because a lot of the time it's hard to know what you're doing when you're making, at least for me, and then it's nice to have someone, you know, putting into words some stuff you're doing consciously and subconsciously. But I made this duet for the show with Jade in maybe 6 rehearsals. It was really slapdash, but it came out. I was really happy with the result. And Jade and I were also reflecting the other week about how many times we've danced together since the pandemic or the past 2 years, and we realized that we had been in maybe 10 separate dances together, which is kind of obscene. But it just kind of speaks to the nature of this community and how much we kind of toss each other's labor around. And yeah, no, it was a really fun weekend.
And it seems like you have programming quite frequently every other week. Is that true? And between you also have classes and workshops. What are you most excited about in terms of future programming, upcoming performances, or other types of events?
Yeah, I wanted to point out that the show that you saw preview of with Jade and Owen's show was probably we're 6 months in now as of this weekend, and we've had 2 to 3 shows every month since. So we're around, I can't do the math right now, around 12 plus shows. So this setup that you see with all the chairs and the different levels, kind of a makeshift theater seating arrangement. It took us a long time to get here. We didn't have really any equipment when we first started putting on shows. So we've done a lot of work and learned a lot to get to where we are now. And we will continue to have 2 shows a month for the foreseeable future. We have a weekly yoga class that's taught by Amelia Heinzelman. It's amazing. And we will also have workshops upcoming. We have a workshop this weekend with dancers and choreographers Jordan Lloyd and Jesse Young. And we have a very exciting workshop next month with Beth Gill, the choreographer, and we're all super excited about. And it just feels like it's going to keep growing like that. We will plan to just really consistently have 2 dance shows a month and classes and workshops as much as we can sustain for the next few years to come. We are also starting to program more music shows or shows outside of just dance making, which is exciting as well. And yeah, I guess, does anyone else want to join in?
I think it's kind of important to say too, we started out with a pretty heavy class schedule. Mm-hmm. We had, I think, like 5 classes a week.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think it's a great example of how we're like learning about what we want to put our effort into, because it is all volunteer run and we get to decide like what it's worth. But at the end of the day, it felt like classes weren't the right fit for us right now. So the class we've kept is like basically one of our community members who we can't lose this yoga class. It's too good. You guys got to come. Mm-hmm. We all go all the time. But that's the only class we really uphold. And other things we kind of try to program in more workshops, because that feels more like a smaller amount of time and a more condensed amount of time for people to come in and really teach something like very articulate. So I think that won't be forever, but it's just a good example of how we've like grown and changed.
Yeah, and understood like our capacity and resources as a volunteer run artist run space. Like having 5 classes a week, we had to show up to register the class and let the teachers in and help keep track of attendance. And we're all running this space amongst our lives of working and making art and taking care of our bodies and our social lives and everything. So we learned pretty quickly that we just didn't actually have the capacity or resources to uphold the class schedule. I think we're at a place now where we're understanding we've been able to standardize for the most part and understand what is within our means. And it'll be really interesting, I think, to see over the next few years how that expands larger than where we are now. But yeah, we've learned a lot.
As the Rail knows, being a nonprofit and you know, working primarily with volunteers, the resources and support is very important. If you had, you know, all the resources at your fingertips, what would some of the dreams you would have for the space be, or what artists would you want to invite, or what, you know, you can dream big, what would you do?
Well, I think what's interesting that we're finding out is without all the resources, we still love are like coming. Like that's kind of the most exciting thing. But of course, having all the resources would also be great.
I guess a bigger space and like equipment to support our shows. I think something that is important though to say before we maybe articulate the dreams and maybe expanding one day is that it's really important to us that we're making opportunities for emerging artists. So while even if our resources expanded, it might be exciting to program bigger artists. I think our intention and our mission is to create opportunities for people that don't have them at bigger dance institutions. So I think whether we grow and have more money and a bigger space, I think I can speak for all of us that we would still intend to create opportunities for artists that don't otherwise have that space.
Yeah, and I feel like with your, you know, the intimacy of everyone, you know, pitching in and very DIY, it keeps it intimate and it keeps it, you know, everyone's collective vision. So, you know, growth is can be defined in many different ways. I'm sure you'll continue to think through.
I think one day go ahead, Jade.
I was just gonna say, like, not gonna lie, it would be great to be paid to do it, and like it would be great because I mean it's like a full-time job, but it's just we're just doing it out of love, and it would be great to just for there to be more financial support in general, like for us who are doing, you know, all the like behind the curtains work, but also for the artists that we're supporting, to be able to like give them you know, like accurate compensation for their work, and yeah, just the financial reality of it.
Are there any questions you have for each other, or any topics that, you know, we haven't touched upon about the space, about the work that's been presented in the space, the work that might be presented or will be presented?
Well, Sharleen has a split bill coming up in November, but our next show is next week. It's Isabella Gay and Renata, how do you pronounce this? Piera Lima? I'm so sorry, Renata, if I mispronounce your name. But that's next week. And then the following show after that is Lou Yim and Kabir Carter. So we have, I think our winner is going to be like an amazing season, or the fall, I misspoke. And then these workshops with Jesse, Jordan, and Beth are like so exciting.
Yeah, we have a lot coming up.
Sharleen, do you want to share a few words of preview about your work, or do you want to keep it completely?
I'll keep it a surprise, but okay. I'm very excited.
I just wanted to get the inside scoop, you know, heard it here first.
It will be my first time showing work at Pageant, which will be exciting. And as it goes, there will be a lot of dancers from the community in it, and Richard McDonough, circling back to him, is going to be helping me build something. So it'll be a great community event.
And what day is that? I know we can put the website in the chat. And
our website has all of our information about our upcoming programming. Actually, I will say I think the November shows are not on there yet. But,
okay, yeah, I can see it.
There's my show will be November 17th and 18th. Something we're working on, as we've been saying, it's a volunteer run full-time job for us. So there's a lot of things that we want to happen already that it just takes a lot of work to do and a lot of organizing and communicating. So we are working, Lily Decker, who does amazing work for the space, helping us keep track of our finances, and is also helping maintain the website. We're working together to launch a new website soon, which with the help of our friend Hank Mason, who will help us have a more in-depth, slightly more informative website. So soon it will be very up to date.
Right now our Instagram is like our fastest moving information source.
Yeah.
But soon the website will match.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I'll just, why not plug again our Patreon, which is also a great place to see the work that is done. It's on our Patreon that we just launched this week, which is very exciting for us, and we worked a really long time to get up and running, has our archive of shows. So Kale, again, has documented, this actually, what you see on the screen is a still from the documentation. He has been since June documenting all of our shows, and we didn't know him prior to June, I think, and he just, with a lot of energy and excitement, just told us that he just wanted to document everything that happened at Pageant, which it is a great testament to how the space just has this spirit and is a magnet for people that really want to work and just create something special together. It's amazing to us because as dance makers, you don't really always have great documentation of your work. And as you could see, his work is amazing. It's so beautiful, and he's so thoughtful and delicate with it. And so our Patreon has not only our archive that has just traditional documentation of all the shows, but we're working on creating this extra footage, which you saw the preview from. And it's really exciting to us, and just I hope people get to see it, see his work, and to see our work as a space. Yeah.
Wonderful. I guess before we turn it over to any questions from our audience, to bring it back to the rail and our, translating performance to words, is there anything that you've read recently, whether it's about dance or an article or, fiction or anything that stood out to you? If not, you can think about it and we can start the Q&A, but just a question that occurred to me, if anything jumps to your mind to share.
Like what's on our reading list?
Yeah.
I'm reading this book called Everything for Everyone, which is like a history of this like fictional New York commune in the future. And I'm reading the Richard Brody book on Jean-Luc Godard, which is great. Yeah. What about everybody else?
Reading Margaret Atwood's The Edible Woman, because I've got a cannibalism thing going right now.
I'm reading the Sarah Mitchelson book, the Mama book.
I'm reading the Didi Dolivier book that Dance Space put out in 2013.
I didn't know that existed. That's cool.
It's really good. It's a compilation of all her collaborators writing about Didi.
Wow.
It's a lot of fun.
We open it up. Is that the next phase of this journey?
Yeah, we can do that. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm This is making me really excited and happy. So I'm really grateful for this.
Eleanor herself has a dance background and will be writing for the dance section. So I'm very excited that she was able to join us.
Wow, Gillian, thank you. Thanks for the shout out. Yeah, it's been really amazing. We do have some cool questions coming up. Can we start off with Ty?
Hey.
Hi, Ty.
I was camera off going the whole time. Thank you guys. I wanted to ask about physical karaoke because it's like, I think the most fun and genius thing ever. And I wanted to ask you guys like who kind of came up with that idea, because it was my introduction to pageant and we got there and then I didn't know what we were walking into, and then we walked into the space and it was so beautiful. And then everyone kept saying this thing where they were like, oh, I didn't practice at all, and then whipped out like beautiful and memorized things. So I wanted to ask about the origins of physical karaoke.
Alexa.
It is
it's all her fault.
Yeah. It's like my running joke baby that I wanted to do for a long time, because I don't like singing karaoke and everyone does, but singing karaoke has this seed of something I'm interested in, of like learning something that already exists and re-performing it, whether it be very well done or really poorly done. And so pageant was like that night was awesome, and we are doing it again. So I'll explain it for those who don't know. Physical karaoke is just like singing karaoke, where you find a dance from a music video, a movie, anything you like, a physical thing you can mimic or copy. You learn it or don't learn it. It's your choice. And we project it behind you and you do it at the same time. It's like beautiful and wonderful and magical. And we're going to be doing it a Halloween version, but your dance doesn't have to be Halloween, on October 28th at Pageant, 8 p.m. DM us, email us, we'll put you on the list. It's really fun, it's free, and I think we're going to have cocktails and have a fun time. Yeah, your dance does not have to be Halloween. I think we have a Pirates of the Caribbean one up. David Byrne, etc. So yeah, that's thank you for asking that. I could just go on a really long rant about it.
So we encourage everyone to dress up. It doubles as a Halloween party, but it's also dance character party.
Oh my God, Eleanor, you're in. Hi.
Yes. Thank you, Ty. Did anybody else want to jump on that question as well? Okay, cool. Keeping it in the family, we have a question from Kale now. Kale, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you, Eleanor. Yeah, I was co-conspiring with Ty for my question. But when we were doing the video interviews, a lot we shot for way longer term stuff too, and a lot didn't make it into the video that's out now. But one of my favorite questions, which I think annoys the pageant crew the most because it makes them self-identify, but it's also the one that I'm most interested in, is I'd love to hear you all talk, you four specifically talk about, I guess, a two-part question, which is, as much as you're able, I'm curious what the dance language is that's forming around you four as a collective and your collaborators, what that looks like and what it's starting to look like, I guess. And then separately, what you see happening in the dance community that's coming into the space right now. Does that make sense? So what if, as we go into the future and we look back, what might somebody say, oh, that's how pageant danced? And what might somebody say, oh, that's dance that happened in New York at the time that pageant was around?
Big question, Kyle. I don't know. We always say that we're composition hoes. We really love composition. It's hard to describe something while you're in it, though, I think.
Yeah.
It's it's very formal on one end, and on the other end, it's snarky, or I don't know. There's not a good word for it.
It's a little playful.
It's like
a little funny.
There's like affect on top of form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost theatrical, but not entirely.
I think that the four of us, I mean, we all definitely have similar like sensibilities and interests, but we all make different work too.
But perhaps
so it's hard to say.
But I think maybe to speak to Kale's question though, it is also fair to say that in the whole like gamut of dance making right now in New York, we definitely are very similar in the work that we're making. I think maybe
to each other, to everyone, Sharleen.
To each other.
Okay.
And,
okay.
Yeah, sorry. The four of us, our work is, I think, related, even though it is also still really distinct and we have our own voices. I think we gravitated towards each other because we have a similar sensibility.
Yeah, I don't think at this time you'll see any of us making like solo work, for instance. Maybe we will, but like in the past, like I think all of us have made, not me, don't.
Foreshadowing.
But like I think if you look at all of our works, it always has kind of like group dynamics involved, some repetition of form. Yeah, there's like a lot of similarities that we have in that capacity. Oh, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I remember we had one point, I remember we were all going through some sort of a Fosse phase. So I feel like there's some sort of
forever in a Fosse phase.
Forever in a Fosse phase, yeah. But there's
I'm out of my Fosse phase.
What do you mean phase?
It's a lifestyle. But yeah, I think that's something about playfulness, like sincere irony.
No.
Like also, maybe not that, but
no.
Like I don't know, but also like dedication to like stage craft. I don't know how to describe it. Like hard to say.
Composition hose.
Yeah. It's a hard question, okay, because I think none of us really like maybe talking about ourselves as, I think we just like to do our work,
But I think if we were to like think about other people's work, like other people are really interested in like somatics or like, a personal interior experience, and that like comes into play. It's not discounted at all, but like I think our priorities are also on like presenting shows, and that's why pageants like developed the way it has, because like we love putting on a show, even if it's like, as casual or as like serious as possible. I think our priority is on creating like things for people to see and showing it to them versus having like a personal experience inside of it.
Yeah, which is also the namesake pageant too, something about showmanship, showship.
Or showman. But otherwise we have no idea. Yeah.
Such a good question, Kale. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kale.
I have like so many questions that I want to ask you all, but I will do two maybe, if that's okay. My first question is how, like from the perspective of a choreographer creator, how has it been different for you all or you each to create in a space like pageant that's yours, that you created, as opposed to renting space at Gibney or wherever? Like, has that been have you been feeling that in your movement? Has that been like affecting your choreography?
It's interesting for me because when I go into the space to work, I can't help but think about all of the work that needs to be done to keep that space alive. Whereas like if I go to a different studio, there's no other emotional, mental relationship to it besides entering it as a blank space. So for me, that is my experience and is special in that way, because you can see how you can maybe how malleable the space is, or how much you can affect it. But I definitely, it's so special to have a space that you can work in and then show work in as well. And also it's hard to have to maintain it and keep it alive at the same time.
I think it's also like a gift. Not a lot of people get to make the work in the space where they show it in any creative context. I don't feel like that's traditional. And in a sense, like I think, you know, the scale of the room always somewhat determines the scale of the movement, which can be a benefit or a disadvantage. You know, it could be interesting if someone made something in a giant room and had to like reframe it for pageant. But I think what the work we're seeing now that's being made there is work that's like super strong in the room, and it's like scaffolded by, yeah, the like, even like the length of the room or this like extra extension we have, people are using it in different ways. So I think that's like a real liberty we're afforded.
Or like the fact that we don't have a lot of equipment. I think about how Owen's show, he used like the crazy overhead lights that we have, and how that's something he was able to sort of maybe, I don't know, Owen, your experience in making that decision, but I thought that was really exciting because it was something that could come about in like the actual rehearsal process for you, I'm assuming, I guess.
Totally. And that was definitely something I was interested in doing when making that piece, was seeing like what dimensions I could pull the room into that we haven't yet done there. And I think that's been really like just what everyone else is saying, seeing all the ways the room is being like distorted and amplified in each show with different orientations of the audience, different lighting options, different amounts of performers, movement styles. It's just fun to see how much the room can change from performance to performance. And yeah, that's been really fun.
Yeah, I think also it's nice to have like sort of a linearity in your working, because I think a lot like making dances is so dependent on having a space to make dances, like a space to work and a space to show it. And a lot of times in New York, you're just kind of like waiting for someone to give you an opportunity so that you can make a piece, like so that you can work at all. And I think us having this space allows us the freedom to like continue to work all the time if we choose to, you know, and that's special.
Also, yeah, no applications, you know?
Yeah, no one applies.
Not having to like spell out something that you don't know what it exists before you do. Like, I think that's what we've all been really missing, or we've never even encountered as adults in like a dance world. We've entered it and it's been like, cool, tell us what you're working on and who you are and where you're from. And it's just really nice to just go in a room and be like, we're just going to show you something and not have to explain it and maybe figure out what it means afterwards. That's important.
Or have to try to make a work that speaks more to what like institutions want than what you actually want to make.
Totally. And there's like not a lot of opportunity to not know something before you're making. I mean, so much of application is knowing the object before it exists. And
it's like a form of proof, this sort of like proof that you like can fulfill something. I don't know if that's like what artists do.
Yeah, that's also why like there's just like the same 12 people that show, not to be shady, but like because people like can vet like, you know, they're vetted, so they get the show, but then other people, where do they go? You know,
pageant, maybe
they come crawling back to us.
How do you select the works? You invite people or they propose to you?
It's a mix, right, Sharleen? Yeah.
It's mostly invitation. It's mostly us trying to give each other and our community opportunities thus far. Again, we've only been open 6 months, so there's still so many people that we are programming for the next spring or the next year that we've been wanting to give an opportunity to show work. It will be interesting to see over time how that changes. Maybe it will get to a point where there's a submission process. I don't know. But we mostly do just go off of invitation and trying to give people opportunities that we know don't have them, and we want to give it to them.
Okay, one other question I had, thank you so much, was like, who are y'all looking to collaborate with, or are there other like spaces or groups in New York or outside of New York that you feel like are aligned with pageant?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we've been like trying to consider making something that we don't really see existing, so that's hard to answer in that way. But someone recently said to us we remind them of a space that closed in LA called PAM Residency.
Oh yeah.
And I was always a fan of that space, and something that space did that I don't think we're planning on doing, but felt really important. This is maybe just a tangent, but they were like, we're only showing LA people, like if you're an LA local, and they kind of kept it in this regard of like, we're not here to make this like getting tons of like people, like, I don't know, like dance or performance people from all over the world. They really want to support their local community. And even though we're not adding that stipulation, I think that's like in line of like what we're doing. But I never went there, so who knows? Just online and conceptually, I think that was like a place I was like, oh, that's like a DIY space that has a level of polish and showing work I respect in terms of performance.
Definitely. I think the only other space that I could think of that, while I think we're very different, that I can compare at least the spirit to is Oceanfront, which is a performance space in, I guess, do you say that's Bushwick?
Bushwick, definitely.
And I think it parallels us to the extent that it's community run and there's a really strong community around it. And that is like just as important as the actual programming that goes on there. And I think that's very distinct from a lot of the other dance spaces in New York, where it's really just about the programming and there isn't a really strong community around it. And I think we relate to Oceanfront in that way. Even though they're more like performance art based perhaps, and I think we have a different sort of programming.
What's y'all's like favorite art space that has nothing to do with pageant? I mean, favorite dance space, like where like if you could go see a show, like where do you go?
Even if it doesn't currently have shows.
Yeah, like what's your spot where you're like, every time I go there, like 90% of the time it slaps?
Oh, well, you guys know that I was like dancing at Judson on Monday, and I was like, when I was there, I was like, wait, this is awesome. I always forget, but when I come back, I'm like, this is special.
It's so beautiful.
Judson Church, the movement research thing we do on Mondays.
Yeah.
Classic.
Totally. Classic.
What do you say, Alexa?
I don't know. I asked the question, Owen. I really like the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, true. I like the Chocolate Factory.
I think they've got a sparkle in their eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the Chocolate Factory though, because like sometimes they have a show where I'm like, they like, we're just trying to support someone working through ideas. It doesn't always have to have this level of like polish that I really like.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. This has been so fun and really, really special. We do have a tradition at the Rail here to end our community events with a poetry reading. And I am really, really excited to introduce Kyle Carrero Lopez, who is our poet for the day. And Kyle, Kyle's an amazing poet. I'm really excited to pass it over to you, Kyle.
Okay, hi everybody. First of all, thank you to the Rail and to Pageant for this conversation. I really, really appreciate it, and the work that the both of you are doing. Since we had a dance talk, I figured I would end us out on a dance poem. So I'll just jump into it. Call and response. Oh, well, I should say also, this poem comes from a book I'm working on that's really focused on Afro-Cuban history and culture. And this dance, Tumba Francesa, I saw for the first time when I was in Eastern Cuba 2 years ago. And yeah, you'll learn more about it. Call and response. The Tumba Francesa dancers circle a maypole holding rivers of ribbon as I watch, seated, tracing each color's strokes across the live canvas. Black women in custard yellow, seafoam green, and yemaya blue gowns. Black men in all white French-style garb. They look and move like petals and cotton bolls adrift on a pond. My feet and sight submerged in its cold vibrations, floating near the grassy edge. The genre, a gem of Eastern Cuba, hails from Haiti. A woman sings Creole mixed with Spanish at the start. The men behind her answer in barrages of tall and short drums whose volume buoys thought instead of drowning it out. As it intakes stimuli, the mind improvs its choreo. Gratitude reduces me. That certain longing for worlds lost, constant, moors itself anew. Ways to celebrate or mourn, crafts and jokes and dress, whole languages, genders and cures and lessons on tending the earth. Worlds innumerable, unknowable as life in deepest seas. And each leads grief down my face, eyes tied in a knot to the dance. I flash in some form often, even couch caught, even at an upbeat show. Drama, I know. To bleak globe scale views of the slave trade, colonization, their present tenses, their possible deaths, what remains owed, what Christina Sharp calls wake work. The question of how to live Black and stay well. You must be fun at parties, the idiom Rolodex sneers. And it's true, I really am. When the dancers beckon the audience to join the movement, it costs just a few seconds to find a first partner. Soon, the drumming takes me, and I let it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. That was really beautiful. And Kyle's chapbook, Muscle Memory, is coming out from Pink Press, and it's in the chat. You should all check that out for more of Kyle's amazing work. And thank you everyone for joining us here today. It's been such a pleasure as always. And thank you again to Jade, Owen, Sharleen, Alexa, and Gillian. Thanks to everyone for joining. And we'd also like to thank the Truro Foundation for sponsoring our NSE programs and for their support of our growing archive, which you can check out on our YouTube channel. And for the past 22 years, the Brooklyn Rail has provided a platform for the arts, culture, and politics in our monthly publication and our public events like our daily NSE. So please check the chat for a link to donate to support our writers and editors and operations. And if you're free tomorrow, please join us at 1 p.m. for a conversation with Michael Findley, Veronique, Shannon Burke, and Phyllis Tuckman on the event of Mad Women, Cornblee, Jackson, Seidenberg, and Ward on Madison Avenue in the 1960s at David Nolan Gallery. Tomorrow we will conclude with a poetry reading by Daisy Freed. And now I think we can turn on the mics and everyone can say hello and goodbye as you leave. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Jade,
you
Alexa,
so
Owen,
much.
Sharleen.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And can't wait to be in pageants soon.
Yay.
Musical karaoke.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
Sign
you
me
for
up.
Thank you
supporting
so
us.
much.
Yeah.
Have an
Bye,
amazing
everyone.
afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your
Take care. Yeah, thank
That
you
was
so
incredible.
much, Kyle.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.